from. That'll be the passage we read together. I'm also going to ask if some of you others will also please go ahead and turn to some of these other passages so that you can read them for us as we go along. This was not the lesson that I was going to give tonight. I had prepared another lesson. As a matter of fact, the lesson I had prepared and studied Monday and Tuesday, and then this morning to bring tonight when I was driving up here this evening, the Lord's like, do something different. So here it is. We're going to do a different lesson tonight. Hopefully you can be able to glean the truth and see the truth found therein. So Matthew chapter 12 and verse 38 through 40 will be our first reading there. And I want you to notice, kind of hone in on what Jesus is establishing and saying here. Now the context is Jesus has been trying to preach, teach, and proclaim truth. And as he's been trying to teach, preach, and proclaim truth, you guys know from previous studies that there were always those there who were looking for Jesus to say something by which they could then accuse him of. There were always those there who were hoping to maybe say something or do something to get Jesus to react so that then they could in turn accuse him or cause him to stumble and ultimately bring his ministry to ruin in the eyes of the people. So here in Matthew chapter 12, that's what's been going on for a little while. And when we get to verse 38, here he is. He's still trying to reach and teach them truth, but they got something they want and there's something they desire. It says there in verse 38, then certain of the scribes and of the Pharisees answered, saying, Master, we would see a sign from thee. Essentially, what is it that these Judaizers, what is it that these scribes, what is it that these Pharisees, what is it that they desire to see from Jesus? Y'all read it right there with me, right? A sign, right? If you're really the Messiah, right? If you're really that anointed one, if you're really that promised one, if you're really the one that God told us he was going to send to take the sin debt of the world away, if you're really him, we want to see a sign then, Mr. Jesus of Galilee. We really want to see you do something that would just, beyond all question or doubt, remove it all. Yep, you're the one. And since they asked, or since they kind of stated that there, let's see how Jesus answered them. Verse 39. But he answered and said unto them, an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. And there shall no sign be given to it, but the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So, according to Jesus, did he say, okay, sure, let me do a quick little sign for you? Is that what he said? No, I said, no, evil and adulterous generation looking for a sign, and you ain't going to get one at this moment. But guess what? But guess what? I will give you a sign eventually. And as he said, I'm going to give you a sign, it was the sign of the prophet Jonah. Now, some of our young people who are here, I know y'all been to Sunday school and Bible school and everything else. Anybody want to remind me who Jonah is? Go ahead, Luke Raines. I see your hand up. Okay, prophet of God, who God said, hey, I want you to go to Nineveh and preach against them. And Jonah said, I don't think so. Huh? Jonah said, I don't think so. Jonah went to Joppa and jumped on a boat. I'm going to Tarshish instead. Tarshish and Nineveh are not the same thing. All right, see, I'm not going there. Forget it. He gets out there on the water not long after he leaves Joppa. Great storm arises, and those mariners decide, we got to do something. And after talking it over and discussing it with Jonah and even talking to the Lord about it, they threw him over. And when they threw him over, if you remember, it said God had prepared a great fish. And as God had prepared a great fish, that fish swallowed Jonah. And how long was Jonah in that fish? 3 days, 3 nights. Now, that's what Jesus is establishing here. Right? Jesus is establishing here. You ain't going to get no sign. It ain't going to be a razzle-dazzle. It ain't going to be an abracadabra. You're not going to get any of those type of things that you're looking for. But what you need to be looking for is I'm going to be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights, and then I'm rising again triumphant. So Jesus is establishing that here himself. By the way, this isn't just in Matthew. You'll also find this in some of the other Gospels as well, especially Mark, where Jesus is essentially saying, yes, 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Right? He's establishing it. He's saying it. He's putting it forth. Then my question to you is, in our world today, you hear a lot about Good Friday, right? In our world today, you hear a lot about Good Friday. You'll even hear certain services, people having Good Friday services and Good Friday observances. And Brother Raines, what y'all doing for Good Friday? And this, that, and the other, right? You hear all these kind of things. Well, to the world around us, Good Friday is essentially the day that Jesus was crucified. All right? That's what it's purported to be. All right? The day Jesus was crucified on a Good Friday. Now, my question to you is this then. If Jesus just got through saying, hey, I'm going to be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, then how do you get, and remember I'm from Shelby County, so y'all can explain it to me, but how is it he crucified on Friday, comes out on Sunday, and you still somehow get 3 days and 3 nights? Remember, I'm not good at math. Oh, thank you, Mr. Joe. I don't feel so bad no more. You can't do it. It don't work out. It doesn't equate. Then, okay, then, we've got to try to establish biblically. That's why I got nothing but Bible verses up here. This ain't Brother Raines' dream he had last night. This is all going to be something we kind of go through the scriptures with. So that's why I'm going to ask you to help me read these so that we can kind of go through scripture and see how to make it all make sense, how Jesus did indeed go into the grave 3 days and 3 nights, and how he did indeed arise Sunday. Whew. All right. Well, let's look at it then. First and foremost, anybody happen to have Genesis 1:5 open and ready? Miss Joe does. Luke, come on. Miss Joe's going to read it for us. Y'all follow along. Remember, Genesis is the book of precedence. If you're looking for some grounds, if you're looking for something that you need to kind of hang your hat on, go back to Genesis. Marriage, Israel becoming a people. All these things are found in Genesis. And here in Genesis chapter 1, we see the amazing and awesome God of creation that we serve beginning to create the origin of everything. Plants, animals, people, everything. Genesis 1:5 there, Miss Joe.
And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
All right, Miss Joe just hit on something that's really, really, really important. Evening and the morning. Did y'all catch how Miss Joe read that? And how Moses recorded that by inspiration of God? By inspiration of God, it was recorded the evening and the morning were the first day. This is now the establishment of days as we know it. The establishment of days as we know it. And oh, by the way, since Jesus in Matthew chapter 12 was talking to the Pharisees and the scribes, you think they're going to know a little bit about Genesis? They should, because it's part of the what? The Old Testament law, right? It's part of the Old Testament, the first 5 books of the Pentateuch. They should have had a good handle on this. So now we need to establish that for the Jews, as they're reckoning days, evening and morning is how they count that, right? So, for example, by the time you get to 6 o'clock in the evening, that turns over to a new day, right? When you get to 6 o'clock in the evening, that turns over to a new day. Guess what, by the way? Anybody catch the news or anybody staying on track of world observances? For the Jewish people and for the people of Israel, what do they start tonight? Well, excuse me, it's 7. So they started an hour ago. What did they start an hour ago at 6 o'clock? Anybody catch it on the news? They made a big deal about it. They started the Passover. All right. So if you're a Judaizer and you're holding to Jewish law and tradition, about an hour ago they started the Passover. Why 6 o'clock? Okay. All right, so we see now why it was 6 o'clock an hour ago they started, now we're going to start observing Passover. It wasn't some randomness. It's because they're counting their days like the law told them to. They're going back to that evening in the morning, 6 o'clock is the start of the day. So everybody got a good handle on that, right? All right, let's go then to Matthew 26. Matthew chapter 26, I want to ask you, when Jesus was in Jerusalem, getting ready to go to the cross of Calvary for our sin debt, was there anything else going on in Jerusalem at that time? I heard somebody say something. It was something pretty important. Remember, he was with his disciples, and before he instituted the Lord's Supper, they had a meal. I heard somebody say it. Passover. All right. They're there observing Passover. Remember when Jesus was 12, he got left behind after they got to observing that. Jesus always very in tune to observe the Passover and those Old Testament feasts and observances. They're in Jerusalem for the Passover. Yes, he's going to go to the cross of Calvary. Notice what it says in Matthew 26, 19 and 20. Anybody who has that wide open and handy there? All right. There's two people behind you, Luke. Pick one and go. The next one can read the other. 26, 19, and 20.
And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12.
All right. So all I'm trying to do is establish Jesus is there observing the Passover. He's getting ready to observe it with his disciples. After they observe the Passover, then he institutes, well, he kicks out Judas. Then they institute the Lord's Supper. After they institute the Lord's Supper, and they get finished with all that, and all the other things that are associated with that time and in that place, such as the washing of the feet, then they leave, they go over to the Garden of Gethsemane, and it is there where Jesus is apprehended, right? Jesus apprehended Garden of Gethsemane. That very evening, they go through all these little kangaroo courts, right? All these little kangaroo courts, and we're going to drag him here, and we're going to drag him there, and he's going to appear before this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. And it all takes place throughout the nighttime. By the next morning, by the way, he said they observed that Passover in the evening, so it's still the Passover day when Jesus is finally put on the cross. So Jesus is finally going to get put on that cross. Mark 15:25. Anybody tell us the time that Jesus was put on the cross? Thank you there, Spence. Third hour, which is 9 in the morning. Now, 9 in the morning, Passover, Jesus is put on the cross of Calvary. Now, by the way, I know we covered this about a year ago, but you know me, I forget stuff pretty easy. What is this Passover anyway? Okay. Ooh, okay. Okay, so Ms. Joe said it's a observance of remembrance to remember when they left Egypt and how that God delivered them from Egypt. And he did that by remembering he had plague after plague after plague. Pharaoh said, I ain't going to let him go. He just kept on rejecting opportunity. And as he kept on rejecting opportunity, his heart just kept on getting harder and harder and harder. And as his heart kept on getting harder and harder, finally, the ultimate plague, and that was the death of the firstborn. But the Lord said, hey, if you will kill the blood of a what? Thank you. Who said that? Thank you there, Levi. Of a lamb. Good job, man. All right. Of a spotless lamb there, and you put the blood over your top and your sides. The Lord said, hey, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. Hence, Passover, right? So, any significance then that we see Jesus getting put on that cross at that particular day, right? That Passover day? Yes, because remember, he is the lamb without spot or blemish. Right? Levi just said it. He's the lamb without spot or blemish. Now, as they're observing Passover, Jesus is about to be the Passover. He's about to be the lamb sacrifice for the sin debt of the world. 9 a.m., he's put on that cross of Calvary as the lamb that's going to take away the sin of the world. And then we get to Matthew 27:45. In Matthew 27:45, something pretty amazing happens. Something pretty awesome happens that just, it wasn't some cosmic accident. It wasn't some cosmic happen chance, but it was something of God's doing. Matthew 27:45. Anybody have that handy there? Jaden does. Luke, where you at? Jaden's got it. Everybody listen to Jaden. What goes on Matthew 27:45 that we need to be aware of?
Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour.
All right. Remember, 3rd hour he's put on the cross. So, Jaden, read that. Tell me one more time. What'd you say? 6th hour is going to be your what? Your noon? Until the 9th hour, which is going to be your 3 p.m. Correct? All right. 6th hour to the 9th hour. Noon to 3, darkness. Somebody shut off the lights, right? And I don't mean just a little bit of darkness. I don't mean that it was still pretty. You could see pretty. No. I believe this is like that darkness of Egypt. That when God turned out the lights, boom, it was darkness. and it was inky, black, suffocating darkness over all the land. It was as if the Lord was in mourning for his only begotten Son. And from noon to 3, it was dark now. But then, after that, right? After that, Bible tells us, after that time period, remember, Jesus said 7 things on the cross of Calvary, and we already went through those probably the first year I was here during the Easter time, those 7 cries from the cross of Calvary. And remember, after most of this stuff is done, he cries out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Remember, Lord, boy, it's going through agony. There's a pain, there's a suffering there. After he does all that, he says, it is finished. Everything needed for redemption has been purchased. Everything needed for salvation has been paid for. I have done it all, and to all him be the glory, because it is finished through him. Jesus did it all. He didn't need our help. He did it all. So it is finished. And then last of all, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. All right, we all remembering all that, right? Father, in thy hands I commend my spirit. Now, so, by the way, and we said what up here? At 6 o'clock, what happens? Start of another day. Start of a new day. So you got from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, you better do something with that body. And you better do it quick, right? So then, 3 o'clock, John 19:31, that illustrates this urgency, right? That illustrates, oh man, we better do something, and we better do it quick. Anybody have John 19:31? Cameron does, Luke, so go ahead and run back there, Cameron.
And the Jews, therefore, because it was the preparation that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for the Sabbath day was a high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away.
Everybody remember that? There was 2 thieves, one on each side, right? Jesus in the middle. And because it was the preparation day, meaning there's an important day about to start at 6 o'clock. And it's real important, and we'll talk about that. But it's so important that we got to hurry up and do something with these bodies, because we need them done before 6. So can we go ahead and just break those rascals' legs? Now remember, they're hanging on those crosses of Calvary, right? And they're pushing up with their legs to take the weight off their diaphragm and breathe. If you break their legs, guess what? There's no means to take the weight off. You're going to suffocate and die. You can't breathe. So go break them thieves' legs. They went and did it. But what about Jesus? And Miss Joe's saying he's already dead. Well, if he was already dead, then does anybody remember, since he was already dead and they weren't going to break his legs, he's already dead, what they did instead? Sadie, I see your hand. Pierced his side. Come out blood and water. All right. So not a bone broken. Fulfill prophecy. So we got to hurry up and get them in the ground. We got to hurry up and bury them, because remember this. After that Passover, remember how we studied those feasts and how we said that right there after Passover, you got the first day of the feast, and I know y'all remember this, Feast of Unleavened Bread. And y'all remember how when we were going through those feasts, I kept hammering to y'all, Holy Convocation, Holy Convocation. Remember that? Anybody remember what that meant? That meant what? No work to be done. Nothing. You're not going to dig a hole in the ground. You're not going to prepare a body. Nothing. So at 6 o'clock, they're in a hurry, because it's going to be the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and they can't do no work. Man, we got to break the legs. We got to do something, get them bodies off. We got to get them in the ground. So if you'll remember, who was it? Anybody remember? We don't really hear much about what happened to the bodies of the thieves. It's conjectured, but we don't really know. We don't say much. But what about the body of Jesus? Anybody remember? Who was it that came and begged for the body? Oh, there you go. Joseph of Arimathea. And did he have a homeboy, a buddy with him? He sure did. It was that guy that come to him by night. Nicodemus. Thank you, Dad. Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea got Jesus' body. And if you're still in John, it'll tell you some of these details here. They got his body, and they're in a hurry, man. They're in a hurry. So since Joseph's sepulcher is there near in the garden, near where the crucifixion took place, they don't got to do a lot of transport travel. right? It's there. It's right there handy. So, and remember that fulfilled prophecy also being in a rich man's tomb. Anyway, so they get Jesus' body and they bury it. So now it's buried. Now Jesus said what now? Remember, he said 3 days, 3 nights. Right? So he's in the ground or in the tomb 3 days and 3 nights. You say, all right then, Brother Rain. 3 days, 3 nights. Draw it out. Now I'm going to erase some of these verses because it looks like a bunch of scribble. So I'm going to erase it so y'all can see what we're about to draw up here. And if you need some of those verses, I hope you took a picture with your cell phone. Because like I said, I don't have any notes tonight because the Lord hit me with this when I was driving today. So I was like, all right, Lord, that's what you want. That's what we'll do. All right. All right. So we established Wednesday Passover, Jesus crucified. Now up here, when it got 6 o'clock, it turned into Thursday. Right? So then you got Thursday down here. Now, it got 6 o'clock in the evening again. Now it's what? Now down here it's Friday again. And then up here it got 6 o'clock, so now it's Saturday. And down here it's Saturday. Uh-oh. Now it's getting to be 6 o'clock again. So it's about to turn into Sunday. Now you say, well, Jesus said it, 3 days and 3 nights. So where's them 3 days and them 3 nights? Well, let's look at the nights. 1, 2, 3. Let's look at the days. 1, 2, 3. You say, all right then, Brother Rain. So you men tell me, when it turned Sunday, sometime after it turned Sunday, Jesus arose triumphant from the grave. That's exactly what I'm telling you. As a matter of fact, Matthew 28:1 helps us get a good handle on that. Anybody happen to have Matthew 28:1 and can read it loud so we can get a good handle on this? Lucas, you got that? All right. Turn around, Luke, and give it to Lucas there. Matthew 28:1.
Thanks, Luke. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre.
Now, when Lucas was reading that, y'all heard what Lucas said. The end of the what? Remember, to the Jews, what was their Sabbath? Saturday. Saturday was their Sabbath. Goes back to the Old Testament law, Genesis again. Saturday is when their Sabbath was. It had just ended, right? Now remember, if it ended at 6 o'clock, are them girls going to go out there when it's pitch black dark? No, I don't think so. But it established here in Matthew 28 what? That it was what time of day? Thank you. Dawning of the day. Sunshine. Dawning of the day. So sometime between 6 o'clock and 6 a.m., right, Jesus arose triumphant. Now, this is when it was discovered, because it was daylight, and they came to anoint the body. That's when it was discovered. But sometime between then and then, he arose triumphant. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Brother Rains, I think it was almost immediately after 6 o'clock. You say, why do you say that, Brother Rains? Because it would be another night. Because it would be another night, and he didn't say 4 nights and 3 days. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. 3 days and 3 nights. So 6 o'clock, boom, triumphant. Right? Later on, girls show up. Nobody's in there. That's because he's already conquered the grave. Now, with that being said, if he arose triumphant on Sunday, boom, and everybody's happy and joyful, then what do these verses establish then, and why are they important, Brother Rains? You got 3 different verses there, and you got them all bunched together like there's something special. Well, they are. They are. John 20:19, we studied this last year. John 20:19, you got the church gathered together, right? They gathered together. They're in sorrow. They're in mourning. They upset. But somebody tell me what John 20:19 says there. And by the way, I'm also going to need somebody to get these verses too, so make sure somebody's turning there. John 20:19. Go ahead, Jaden. Luke, get Jaden there.
Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst.
All right,
and
so that's good. That's good, Jaden. Good.
Yes,
Peace be
sir.
unto you. All right, first day of the week. All right, first day of the week, which we already established, Sunday. Church is gathered together. Remember, there was somebody skipping church that day. Anybody remember who that was? They called him Doubting something. Doubting Thomas. He's skipping church. And before you get too mean and mad at Thomas, remember, these guys have been going through an emotional agony. Right? An emotional agony. Their Savior has been crucified in a most bloody and horrific fashion. So let's not throw too big a rocks at Thomas. But he laid out of church, and he missed this wonderful opportunity as they're gathering together to see the risen Savior. That same day that he's been discovered, that same great day that the tomb is open and revealed, there he is there with the church. Now, the church meeting on that Sunday, and they get to meet the resurrected Jesus. Now, in Acts chapter 20 and in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, because of that, because Jesus rose on Sunday triumphant and victorious, because that first church has already been meeting that day, Sunday, and Jesus appeared to them, then what is established for New Testament churches? Well, let's see then. Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Go ahead, Jesse.
And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight.
All right. Paul, y'all thought I was on with it, right? Y'all thought I was on with it. Paul's preaching to midnight. People falling out the lofts and dying over it. So, y'all don't got it too bad. Remember, it's all relative. Acts chapter 20, you see there, this Paul, as he's traveling about, he comes to Troas. And as he comes to Troas, first day of the week when the disciples are come together, right? You're establishing, what we see being established here is the churches meeting together on Sunday. Not Saturday, not Monday, not Tuesday, but on Sunday in honor and recognition of Jesus' triumph over the grave. Why do y'all worship on Sunday? Because it's biblical, right? It's not randomness. It's not we just decided, it'll do. No. We're honoring, in a sense, it's almost like every Sunday we're celebrating the triumph of the grave. Right? Every Sunday we're celebrating Jesus. We're celebrating life in him. We're celebrating his victory over the tomb. You say, well, all right, that was Acts 20, verse 7, the church at Troas. What about 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2, as Paul is writing to the church at Corinth? All right. Jesse, Luke, Miss Joe's got that handy. 16, 1 and 2, if you could, Miss Joe.
Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come.
Anybody catch anything relevant to our discussion tonight? First day of the week. Church at Corinth. Hey, if y'all going to be getting some offerings together for the church at Jerusalem, what a great day to do it than the day you're gathering together to worship. The day you're gathering together to praise the Lord and serve the Lord and lift up the Lord. So then we see New Testament precedent, right? New Testament precedent, 1, 2, 3, 3 legs to stand on, of worshiping on Sunday, not Monday. Well, he got crucified on a Friday, and I'm sure he rose out that grave on Monday. Really? I ain't never heard of a Happy Monday Day or Good Monday, or I never heard of that. Well, then I just don't know, Brother Raines, but I'm sure it makes sense. No, what makes sense is that it was not a proper application of biblical truth. And years ago it was established. Remember, as a Baptist people, you got to always remember this truth, right? As a Baptist people, we are not Protestant. We're not, right? And as a Baptist people, we're not Catholic. We're not any of that, right? We are Baptist people. And a Baptist people that goes back to tracing their lineage to Jesus Christ, establishing his church and his personal ministry, and we go back to our biblical foundation for our practice and what we do. So it's not about what has been told or taught or the world embraces. It's about, well, what does the Bible teach, right? And now you get a good idea of really what the Bible kind of lays out the groundwork for. And some of you, it's been a long day, right? Some of you, it's been a long day, Brother Raines. All right. Questions, comments, sir? Cameron?
As far as worshiping on Sunday, it also just it makes sense when you follow the Gregorian calendar. The first day of the week is Sunday.
Okay.
We're told to give God the first fruits.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cameron.
As well.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last one.
It only makes sense as
Okay.
well to worship on Sunday.
Well, and I appreciate Cameron bringing that point out about giving God our first fruits, right? First day of the week, giving him that top, that, y'all know, slice it right off the top, right? And notice we keep saying, give him that day, right? Not that higher, not that 20 minutes, but give him that day, right? Let that day be a day that you set aside to worship and praise and honor him, to celebrate his triumph, but to come into fellowship with him, to glean his truths and to be encouraged by him. Oh. Yeah, he did. He did. Oh, well, praise the Lord. Well, you saying that, Miss Danny, you know what's wild about it is, like I said, I was driving, and I was like, Lord, I already got my notes. You know, I already typed them up. And y'all know that when I go to Hardest, a lot of times what I teach and preach to y'all, I preach and teach to them, right? They said they'd never heard this before. At the end, when I was like, what do you guys think? What's your thoughts or comments? They just stared at it. They said, Brother Lane, we never heard that before. And remember, these are senior saints, and this is not hidden. You do got to dig. You do got to dig now. And you got to make it harmonized. You notice how we didn't just stay in Matthew. We jumped to Mark and John and Acts. You got to make it harmonized. But it's in there, right? It's in there. So I hope and pray that you can take and use it. Hope and pray that you can benefit from it and just use it to share with others. Like I said, we're getting ready for Easter on Sunday, and it's an amazing, amazing service. But we need to make sure that we're also staying in line with Bible. All right, I got two hands up. Well, I've heard that as well. Well, maybe that's a big hand, isn't it?
Yeah, and things like Good Friday, Palm Sunday, Lent, and other things along those lines, you have to remember those are Catholic high and holy days. And so we are not. I really appreciate that you brought that out. When we say Christ was sacrificed on a Wednesday, people, their head will spin around. They have no idea what you're talking about. My head spun around, and I didn't know what you were talking about. We had never heard that before. It was never. Thursday, I heard Thursday. Wednesday?
Well, I'll tell you, kind of like when I went to the chaplain training in the military, and I'm talking about the Lord's Supper and stuff. Their heads were spinning. They thought I was crazy, like I'm some crazy backwoods Shelby County. And if I teach this, they probably think the same thing. But like I said, it is in there, right? It is in there. So, man, just look in.